I want you to try a little thought experiment with me right now. Just imagine you have a completely blank slate.
Okay, I love a good blank slate.
Right. So you and a small group of people, you're tasked with building a perfectly fair society from scratch.
It sounds easy enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
You have all the resources you need, a pristine piece of land stretching out right in front of you, and importantly, the absolute genuine collective desire to get it right this time.
So no bad actors at the start.
Exactly. Nobody owns anything yet. There's no boss. You all just sit down in a circle on the grass to write the rules together.
It sounds like, the ultimate human dream, doesn't it? The grand reset we always talk about.
It does. And at first, it's all optimism. You agree that everyone should have enough to eat, right? A safe place to sleep,
Yeah, the basics.
the freedom to live peacefully.
Yeah.
But what happens next? I mean, if human history is any indicator, within, say, a week, you're arguing about who gets the plot of land near the river.
Oh, inevitably. The Riverview property is always the first problem.
Right. And then within a month, someone has decided they need to be the manager of the river to ensure fair distribution.
So they build a fence?
Yes, they
Yeah.
build a fence, and then, well, they need guards for the fence, obviously.
And then a tax to pay the guards for the fence.
Exactly. And within a year, you are just inevitably watching your perfect, pristine society collapse right back into the exact same arguments, the exact same divisions.
The same inequalities you were trying to escape in the first place.
Right. It's like we keep changing the scenery, but the play remains identical. It's a frustrating loop.
We really do seem fundamentally incapable of escaping our own architectures of control, no matter how pure our intentions are at the start.
And that seemingly inescapable loop,
Mm.
that is exactly what we are plunging into today. Welcome to this deep dive.
It's going to be a heavy one today.
It is. We are looking at a deeply visionary, highly philosophical text, which actually comes with an incredibly intricate symbolic map, too.
Yeah, the VAP is fascinating.
It's titled Humanity's Self-Rule. And here is what makes this material so compelling right out of the gate. This isn't some peer-reviewed academic paper from a political science department at, a prestigious university.
No, not at all.
This is the work of Catherine Hall. She is a 51-year-old South African author, and she has basically no formal university education.
Which is such an essential piece of context for how we approach this text, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because Hall doesn't claim to have arrived at these profound critiques of governance or physics or mathematics or theology through years of institutional study.
Right, she's not a professor.
Exactly. In fact, her lack of institutional conditioning might be exactly what allows her to view these human systems from such a radical outside perspective.
Yeah, she describes her process as being driven by intense divine inspiration.
Which is a bold claim.
Very bold.
Yeah.
She talks about these physical urges to write that literally wake her up in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's just pulling these massive complex concepts out of the ether, and she acknowledges openly that the brilliance of these writings completely transcends her own natural, everyday capacity.
It's almost as if she is acting as a vessel for this information.
That's exactly how she frames it. But, and this is important, she isn't just presenting this as unquestionable dogma.
No, her humility regarding the work is actually really striking. She is deeply devoted to God and the Bible, obviously. But her mission now is to subject these writings to rigorous analysis.
She wants people to push back on it.
Right. She wants the concept stress tested. She wants to see if this divinely inspired framework actually holds up when applied to the crushing realities of human existence.
And that is our mission today. We're going to unpack her critique of human governance, unlock the hidden secrets she points out regarding universal law, and ultimately explore what she presents as a literal algebraic blueprint for human liberation.
An algebraic blueprint. I love that phrasing.
It really is. But before we can talk about the ultimate solution she offers, we have to look at the beautifully harsh mirror Hall holds up to our current reality. She calls it the system of failure.
And it is an unflinching mirror, let me tell you. Hall dives straight into a profound critique of how we as a species attempt to govern ourselves.
It's pretty brutal.
It is. She makes this very bold, sweeping claim. She argues that democracy, socialism, and communism are ultimately, in her words, synonyms for the same old lie.
Okay, I need to interject here just to set some boundaries for our discussion, especially for you listening. In this deep dive, we are maintaining strict political impartiality.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely not endorsing or attacking any specific political system today. We aren't taking a side on the left, the right, or the center.
No, that's entirely beside the point of the text.
Right. What we are doing is exploring Hall's philosophical overhead view that all human-made governance structures, regardless of their specific ideology, are fundamentally flawed at their root.
That is the core of her argument. We really have to zoom out here. To Hall, whether a system is democratic, socialist, or communist, they all fail because they share the exact same faulty foundation.
And what is that foundation?
They all rely on what she calls rigid common law. They are ruled by the law rather than being governed by moral codes and ethics.
Okay, I see the distinction she's making there, but I'm struggling to see the practical difference.
How so?
Well, aren't laws just the written, enforceable version of our morals? Like, we think murder is wrong morally, so we make a common law against murder.
You would think they are a direct translation, sure. But Hall argues there is a vast structural divergence between the two.
Okay.
She points out that common law uses a commonality as a benchmark for truth. It is focused entirely on justice. Moral codes, on the other hand, are focused on fairness, equality, and a sense of shared responsibility.
Justice versus fairness. Let's really dig into that, because on the surface, I feel like people use those words
You
interchangeably.
definitely do.
But if we sit with them, they're pointing in entirely different directions, aren't they?
Completely different directions. Think about the mechanics of justice for a second. Justice implies a reaction to a wrong.
Right. Something bad has to happen first.
Exactly. It requires a rigid boundary to be drawn in the sand, and it waits for someone to cross it. Once crossed, it requires punishment, arbitration, and a whole apparatus to administer that punishment.
So it's very reactive.
Highly reactive. And justice inherently implies superiority over. Someone has to be the judge, right? Someone has to be the enforcer. It demands a hierarchy of power.
So justice is inherently backward-looking. It's about balancing a ledger after the damage is already done.
Precisely. Fairness, however, implies a natural balance. It is proactive.
Proactive, okay.
Yeah, it's an ethical stance of all for all. It relies on a moral responsibility for one another that prevents the wrong from occurring in the first place. Fairness doesn't need a judge because it doesn't wait for the boundary to be crossed.
I mean, practically speaking, though, if I drop my reliance on the justice system, someone is going to take advantage of that.
That's the immediate fear, yes.
Because Hall is asking for a monumental shift here. Aren't laws and justice supposed to be the very things that protect us from absolute chaos? I mean, without laws, wouldn't the strong simply devour the weak?
That is the central anxiety of human existence, and it's the exact assumption Hall is challenging.
Is she saying we wouldn't just devolve into chaos?
She points to human history to show that our reliance on these complex systems of laws hasn't actually saved us from chaos at all. It has merely institutionalized and formalized the chaos.
Oh, wow. Formalized chaos.
Yeah, look at the text. She expresses this deep, almost painful exhaustion with human history. She writes about how nations have, time and time again, contributed to their own demise through their endless rulemaking.
The list she writes in the text is staggering. I actually want to read a piece of it because the sheer volume of the words paints such a vivid picture of this exhaustion.
Go for it. It's a powerful list.
She says humanity has been, and I'm quoting here, conquered, enslaved, enriched, revolutionized, overrun, destabilized, overthrown, underdeveloped, war-torn, demarcated, embarked, lines drawn, land grabbed, scavenged, mined, drained, walled, encircled, deforested, rebuilt, broken down, torn up, torched, lit, burnt, polluted.
It's a relentless, suffocating cycle.
It really is.
And her point is that almost every single one of those actions, the drawing of lines, the building of walls, the grabbing of land, was likely done legally.
Wait, legally?
Yes, it was done under the banner of some human law. It was justified in the name of justice or progress or sovereignty for a specific group.
Oh, I see.
Our systems of justice continually divide us. They ensure, as she phrases it, gain for few and upholds for the rest.
That reminds me of looking at a massive ancient oak tree that is slowly dying from the inside out.
Okay, picture the tree.
Right, so the leaves are turning brown, drying up, and falling to the ground. And instead of looking at the soil, instead of nourishing the roots, which would be the moral codes, right, the internal ethics of fairness, instead of doing that, we're frantically running around the tree with ladders and balls of twine.
Trying to tie the dead leaves back onto the branches.
Exactly. We pass a new law, which is just tying another dead leaf to a branch, and it looks okay for a second, but then the wind blows and 10 more leaves fall.
So we invent a more complex legal framework. Stronger twine, taller ladders.
Exactly. It's a perfect illustration of what she calls the maintenance of human rule. Hall writes that to self-rule takes so much of doing and maintaining.
Think about the sheer amount of human energy spent on the discipline, the effort, the continual drafting of rules just to ensure everyone is doing exactly what they are supposed to do.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is a fragile, high-anxiety system. If one gear slips, the whole machine grinds to a halt. We are desperately trying to legislate harmony, and it is exhausting us.
So if our intellect, our complex laws, our courts, and our treaties are essentially just twine and ladders failing to save a dying tree, what actually works?
Right, what's the alternative?
Yeah, where is the proof that a better way even exists? If every human society has eventually fallen into this trap, how do we even know there's an alternative out there?
Well, Hall suggests we don't have to look to the heavens or imagine some impossible utopian future to see the alternative in action.
We don't.
No, we literally just have to look outside our window. She points directly to the animal kingdom.
Okay, when I first read this part of her work, my jaw dropped. It's such a profound shift in perspective. But I also, I immediately felt my own human skepticism kick in.
It is a very jarring pivot.
Yeah.
She introduces the hidden secret that animals are the ultimate living proof of universal law. Hall notes that animals obey God's harmony as if it is encoded into their very DNA.
Encoded harmony.
Yeah, they adhere to the universal laws of discipline, courage, and mutual respect without a single moment of hesitation, without courts, and without legislation.
She writes that they live entirely without pain, remorse, unhappiness, or a sense of lack. And she drops this incredibly provocative thought. She says animals are truly God's way of rubbing our inequality in our faces.
Which is a stunning rebuke of human arrogance, really.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. I know a lot of people listening right now are probably thinking, wait a minute, animals tear each other apart.
The whole nature red in tooth and claw argument?
Exactly. A lion eating a gazelle live on the savannah isn't exactly a picture of peaceful nirvana. Nature is brutal. How does Hall reconcile the violence of nature with this idea of perfect harmony?
It's a crucial question, and it requires us to separate human morality from universal balance. When a lion hunts a gazelle, it is fulfilling a biological imperative within a perfectly balanced ecosystem.
It's not murder.
No, the lion doesn't hunt out of malice. It doesn't hunt out of a desire to humiliate the gazelle. And most importantly, it doesn't kill 20 gazelles, put them in a freezer, and then draw a boundary line around the watering hole, declaring that no other animals may drink there without paying a toll.
Ah, that is the key difference.
Yes. The violence in nature is functional and immediate. It sustains the whole. What humans do is entirely different. We hoard.
We definitely hoard.
We exact revenge. We institutionalize deprivation. A wolf pack doesn't create a lower class of wolves that are legally forbidden from eating.
Right. That would make no sense in nature.
Exactly. The animal kingdom operates on a foundation of mutual systemic harmony. They take what they need, and the balance of the environment continues.
Contrast that with the exhaustive list of human restrictions Hall points out. We have restricted air, restricted seas, restricted land, restricted trade.
It's endless.
We build sanctions, we build walls, we manufacture armor, we have forums, boards, committees, dictators, White Houses, Kremlins.
Yeah.
We need all of that heavy bureaucratic machinery just to keep from annihilating each other.
Exactly. Look at a flock of birds migrating thousands of miles, or a school of fish turning in perfect unison in the ocean.
They don't crash into each other.
No, they move with an absolute unburdened freedom. They don't have a steering committee. They don't have a Supreme Court adjudicating which bird gets to fly in the front of the V formation.
That's a great image.
They are governed entirely by a universal law that ensures they exist in what Hall describes as a natural nirvana. They don't experience a sense of lack because they don't possess the ego to desire more than their immediate reality.
It completely flips our common vernacular upside down. Think about it. When humans are acting chaotic or violent or irrationally greedy, what do we say?
They are acting like animals.
Exactly. We use it as the ultimate insult for a loss of civility.
But Hall is saying, no, we wish we acted like animals. If we acted like animals, we would be in perfect harmony with universal law.
Wow.
Animals represent the highest form of natural order. It is human civility, our obsession with written laws and boundaries, that has actually created the chaos.
This raises a really difficult dilemma, though. Hall acknowledges that animals lack human empowerment. They lack the intellect to build complex structures, to write literature, to consciously manipulate their environment.
True.
And she suspects it is precisely this lack of complex intellect that grants them the beauty of never experiencing remorse or unhappiness. They don't have the cognitive capacity to plot against one another or hoard resources out of an abstract fear of the future.
Right. They're wonderfully trapped in the present moment. But humans do have this empowerment. We do have deep intellect, memory, and the capacity for complex foresight.
We can't simply devolve. We can't unlearn language or uninvent agriculture. We are conscious, empowered beings.
So how do we get back to that natural, harmonious state? If we can't become animals, how do we achieve our own version of that nirvana while retaining our human consciousness?
Yeah, what's the mechanism?
According to Hall, the path back to true sovereignty doesn't require adding a new amendment to our constitutions. It doesn't require a new global treaty or a more sophisticated economic theory.
So no more twine and ladders.
Exactly. It requires the profound, terrifying act of dropping something. It requires the complete abandonment of what she calls one little written thing.
Let's delve into this concept of nirvana and letting go, because this is where her critique moves from the macro societal level down to the deeply personal psychological level.
It gets very personal here.
When I was reading the text, I was trying to visualize this written thing.
Yeah.
What exactly are we supposed to be dropping? Is it our money? Is it our laws?
It is highly symbolic, but it encompasses the entirety of our human obsession with contracts, with ownership, with land deeds, and with competitive self-preservation.
Okay, ownership.
Yeah, that written thing is the physical manifestation of our desire to claim a piece of the universe and say, this is mine, and therefore it is emphatically not yours.
Logos against the other, as she puts it. The written proof of our division. She writes that reaching the light doesn't mean fighting harder for our rights. It doesn't mean clamoring or competing or taking up arms to enforce our claims. It simply means letting go of the bad habits and the bad inheritances that pit us against each other.
If we really meditate on that idea, the relief it offers is profound, but it is also deeply unnerving.
Very unnerving.
We spend our entire lives burdened by the anxiety of acquisition and protection. Think about the anxiety you feel when signing a mortgage or a lease or negotiating a salary. We are terrified of losing what we have written our names on.
We spend decades building walls around our little kingdoms.
And Hall's vision of true sovereignty is the exact opposite of building a stronger wall. It isn't about gaining more power to protect your property. It's about relinquishing the written claims that bind us to greed and conflict in the first place.
It is a massive unburdening of the human spirit. It actually makes me think of someone treading water in the middle of a vast ocean.
Okay, picture that. You're in the ocean.
And while you are treading water, you are clutching this massive, heavy stone anchor to your chest.
Well, that sounds exhausting.
Right. The anchor represents our human laws, our deeds, our contracts. And you are exhausting yourself. You are gasping for air. Your muscles are burning. So what do?
You try to figure out how to swim better.
You try to invent better kicking techniques. You write exhaustive manuals on how to tread water more efficiently while holding a 70-pound anchor.
You form a committee to regulate the proper anchor-holding posture.
Exactly. We just keep inventing more complex ways to struggle against the weight. And Hall is standing on the shore, watching us drown in our own complexity, saying, just open your hands, let the anchor go.
Just complete abandonment of one written little thing. That's how she phrases it.
So simple.
How sober the day when you realize all it would take is letting go. If we dropped the anchor, we wouldn't sink. We would float. The universal law of buoyancy would simply take over, just as it does for the animal kingdom.
But letting go of that anchor is terrifying. I can feel the resistance in my own mind as we talk about it.
Of course. It goes against everything we're taught.
Because practically speaking, if I drop my anchor, if I give up my claim to my home, my savings, my legal protections, someone else is just going to swim over and grab it.
They'll take your anchor.
Hall seems to be asking for a simultaneous global surrender, which feels impossible. How does an individual do this without just becoming a victim of those who refuse to let go?
That fear you are feeling is the exact bedrock that common law is built upon. The justice system exists to validate and manage that fear, to protect us from each other's anchors.
Right.
But Hall argues that this fear is the very illusion we must break. The greed and the theft only exist because of the system of ownership.
Wait, elaborate on that. The greed exists because of the ownership.
Think about it. You can't steal something that isn't owned.
Oh, wow.
If the societal paradigm shifts from protecting what is mine to a universal moral code of fairness, the concept of theft dissolves. Now, is she saying you should walk out of your house today and hand the keys to a stranger?
I hope not.
Not necessarily in a literal, immediate sense. She's talking about an internal spiritual alignment that precedes the physical reality. The greed is neutralized not by a stronger police force, but by a collective spiritual refusal to participate in the game of hoarding.
It's an incredibly pure thought, but it leaves a massive vacuum.
How so?
Well, if we let go of our contracts, our laws, our entire current system of self-preservation, we can't just float aimlessly. We are conscious beings. We need a structure. Even if it's a purely spiritual one, we need an architecture for how to relate to one another.
And she does not leave us drifting. This is where the text becomes truly visionary.
Okay.
Hall provides a deeply spiritual, highly specific blueprint for this new state of being, and she frames it not just as poetry or vague philosophy, but as an awe-inspiring equation, a divine algebra.
The algebra of the Trinity. This is the part of the map that really challenged me, because it takes concepts we think we know and rearranges them completely.
It really does.
She titles this section, A Wedding, Me and God. And the core equation she gives us is m plus e plus g equals 3.
Let's break down the variables of this equation exactly as Hall defines them, because she is reinterpreting ancient theological concepts in a completely fresh, active way.
Okay, let's go.
She states that M equals man, specifically Adam, E equals Eve, the woman, and G equals God. Fusing these together gives you 3, the Trinity.
Let's unpack Adam first. She says Adam represents the firstborn, the original creation in the image of God. He represents human logic, the physical form, the foundational practical creation in the earthly realm.
And then we have Eve. In Hall's equation, Eve is absolutely not a secondary thought or a subordinate, which is how she has often been historically portrayed.
Right, she flips that completely.
Eve represents the ultimate gift bestowed upon Adam, and crucially, she is infused with God's Spirit. Hall defines the Spirit specifically as wisdom, kindness, forgiveness, patience, love, and beauty.
So M is the physical form, the human logic, and the practical intellect. And E is the divine spirit, the wisdom, the moral compass. And then there is a fascinating redefinition she makes regarding Jesus in the context of this specific equation. She says Jesus is the embodiment of God's love, not traditionally defined just as the historical figure or biological son, but as the active essence of divine love that permeates this entire equation.
Yes. In her framework, the Son is Adam, which is the physical logic. The Holy Ghost is Eve, infused with that divine spirit of wisdom, and they become one with the Father God.
Wow.
What's fascinating here is how she speaks about bringing it back home to Father in the garden.
Garden of Eden.
Exactly. But in her framework, the garden isn't just a geographical location from the ancient past. It is a state of synergy. It is the condition where the spirit, the part of God used to create humanity, returns to source.
I want to pause here because this is a massive theological shift. Instead of viewing the story of Adam and Eve as this tragic historical narrative of a fall from grace, a story of ultimate failure, original sin, and punishment.
The way it's usually taught, yeah.
Right. Hall is using them as the essential active ingredients for perfection.
That is exactly it. It reframes our entire theological relationship with ourselves and the divine. We are not just broken vessels waiting to be judged by the common law of heaven. We are the variables in a living equation.
So human logic, Adam, plus divine wisdom, Eve, when actively combined and submitted to God, equal the Trinity.
Yes. Merging the first creation, logic, and practicality with the addition of God's spirit, wisdom, and patience, and unifying that with God, creates a complete synergy of 3.
It's an active formula.
It is an active formula for spiritual restoration that we can apply right now, today.
That is incredibly empowering. It takes the heavy, punitive weight off of traditional religion and turns it into a mechanism for daily alignment.
It really does.
But I can hear the skeptics again.
You're always there.
It is very abstract. It's a beautiful theological concept. But how does this algebra actually translate into building a fair society? Hall isn't just dealing in the abstract. She wants to solve the very real, very gritty human problems we started this deep dive talking about.
And that brings us to the ultimate practical benefit of this text. Hall argues that if we actually apply this equation, it instantly eradicates what she calls sin.
Instantly.
Yes, but we need to look very closely at how she defines sin. She doesn't define it merely as personal moral failings in a vacuum. She defines sin, practically, as systemic unfairness, injustice, corruption, decay, hoarding, and hate.
The exact symptoms of our failing systems of governance, the things that happen when we cling to the written thing.
Precisely. And here is a vital point that grounds her whole philosophy. Hall does not want us to abandon our human intellect to achieve this nirvana.
Oh, good.
She isn't saying we should all go sit in a cave and meditate while society crumbles. Remember, Adam, logic, intellect, practicality is a crucial part of the equation. We aren't supposed to become mindless. She explicitly states we must use the gifts God gave us, but we absolutely must wed them to divine guidance.
Logic without wisdom gives us the cold, rigid common law. It gives us the suffocating bureaucracy and the borders.
And the walls.
But wisdom without logic leaves us unable to practically navigate the physical world, right? We wouldn't be able to build homes or heal the sick.
Right, you need both.
But wedded together under God, they create a perfect self-sustaining system.
To illustrate what happens when we try to fix our massive societal problems using only human logic and human rules, without that spiritual wisdom, she delivers what I think is the most piercing metaphor in the entire text.
The Rubik's Cube.
The Rubik's Cube. She writes that trying to resolve human problems with human institutions, governments, rules, and protocols is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with colored pens.
I love this so much. Let's really map this out. Think about a completely scrambled Rubik's Cube.
Okay, totally mixed up.
The colors are all mismatched. The internal mechanism, the core spindle that holds all the blocks together, is twisted and out of alignment.
Yeah.
This represents our society, broken, unequal, chaotic. When humanity looks at this problem through the lens of human logic alone, what do?
We grab a set of markers.
We grab markers, we take a red pen, and we color over a blue square, and we proudly announce, look, a new law. We fixed it.
We solve the red side.
We take a yellow pen and color over a green square and say, look, a new economic policy. Peace is achieved.
And on the absolute surface level, for one fleeting second, it might actually look like you've made progress. The facade matches, you can hold it up to the camera and say, the puzzle is solved.
Right. But the moment you actually try to use the cube, the moment reality applies pressure to the system and the blocks have to turn, the ink smudges on your hands.
And it's a mess again.
The colors instantly mismatched again, and you realize the internal mechanism is still completely broken. Human laws just paint over the surface. We're just coloring the plastic of a broken machine.
That is the tragedy of common law. It is cosmetic. But Hall's me and God equation, that fusion of logic, wisdom, and surrender, that actually turns the gears.
It fixes the spindle.
It reaches past the colored stickers and aligns the core of the cube. And when the core is aligned, the outside naturally falls into perfect, permanent harmony.
That alignment of the core is what eradicates the corruption and the hoarding.
Exactly. When the internal mechanism is fixed through that divine synergy, you don't need a law to tell you not to hoard resources. The spirit of fairness and mutual respect is driving the rotation of this society.
You don't need the colored pens anymore because the squares naturally find their correct places.
Right, they just belong there.
Let's bring this down to a hyper-practical level. Let's say you are a business owner. How does applying the M plus E plus G equation change how you operate?
Okay, good example.
If you are just using human logic, your goal is pure profit, competitive advantage, and aggressive contracts.
Yes, the standard common law approach. Use the law to protect your assets and outmaneuver your rivals.
But if you apply the equation, you retain the logic, you still need to produce a good product and balance a ledger, but you wed it to Eve, to the spirit of wisdom, kindness, and fairness.
The whole dynamic changes.
Suddenly, your business decisions are governed by a moral code. You ensure your workers are treated with profound dignity. You share the profits fairly. You don't exploit your community's resources.
And you don't need a government regulator to force you to do these things because your internal mechanism is already aligned.
You have elevated fairness above justice. You have elevated moral responsibility above the baseline requirements of the common law.
It challenges us to stop legislating our way out of darkness and start aligning our way into the light.
This deep dive has completely shifted how I view the rules around me, the boundaries we draw, and the way we interact with the natural world.
It's a huge perspective shift.
It's a breathtaking vision of what humanity could be. It takes us all the way from the frustrating, repetitive loop of our political failures, through the silent, perfect wisdom of the animal kingdom, down to the terrifying but necessary act of letting go of our anchors, and finally to this beautiful mathematical wedding of our logic and our spirit with the divine.
It is profound simplicity hidden beneath the complex, deafening noise of our daily lives. Despite the absolute chaos of global politics and societal struggles we see every day, The solution offered by Catherine Hall isn't another global summit. It isn't a new political party. It's about personal surrender.
It places the responsibility and the power of true sovereignty right back into the hands of the individual. You don't have to wait for the world to change. You change the core of your own cube.
And by changing your core, you begin to change the entire puzzle.
It really is that powerful.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a lingering question to mull over. Something to take with you as you step back into the complexities of the real world.
Always good to have some homework.
Exactly. Hall talks about the immense, unburdening power of abandoning that one little written thing, the contracts, the rigid claims of ownership, the need to endlessly defend your territory at the expense of others.
Right.
So as you go about your day-to-day, look at your own life. Look
Mhm.
at your relationships, your career, your personal philosophies. What is your one little written thing?
What's your anchor?
What is the rigid rule, the heavy stone anchor, or the claim of ownership that you are fiercely exhausting yourself holding on to, that you can simply open your hand and drop right now to experience just a taste of that natural, unburdened nirvana?